Leader, distinguished guests and colleagues. It's 24 years ago that I left India as the man who has finished the 42nd Staff Course at Wellington. It was, for those who are younger here in the auditorium, 86 to 87. So it's really a great honor for me to give a lecture now again to this auditorium, to my English colleagues, as well to my four speakers. When I'm briefing you now about German Army Special Forces, then I'm very grateful that what has already been said by General Lamb, or by my Israeli colleague, or our French colleague. Where I cover now German Special Forces, there are some different aspects, and I think you may understand that fairly soon. I think the agenda is very much self-explanatory. What is the history and the origin? You may remember 1994 we had some civil unrest in Rwanda, and German citizens were captured within their radio station. But there were no German forces available to execute a hostage release operation. While our police force, the Federal Police GSG-9, is definitely designated to execute hostage release operation, but not within a hostile environment. They are police forces, not designed for fighting in a hostile environment. So Belgian paratroopers then released German citizens there in Rwanda. And this was a start point to think about to establish special forces in the German armed forces. And it happened in 1996. But before I will carry on, this is again a very specific German issue. By our constitution, police forces are supposed to maintain interior security in Germany. If there's any civil unrest, it has to be done by police forces. Hostage release operations are a police mission, as well in the abroad. Only in case that there is a hostage release or hostage operation in a hostile environment, the Army Special Forces will be deployed for hostage release operation. Furthermore, you must understand, armed forces in Germany are not authorized to be deployed in Germany for maintaining the state's authority. This is again a police authority. So we are concentrating as special forces on deployments abroad Germany, not on interior affairs. What is our concept of employment? First, we are prepared to provide a special operations task group for hostage release operations in a hostile environment outside Germany. Second, we must be prepared to provide one special operation task group permanently on operations somewhere around the world for a long-lasting operation. And third, there's always one unit ready on 24/7 status for national safeguard operations somewhere around the world. In addition, we must be able to contribute to a Combined Joint Forces Special Operations Coordination Center. It's a really nice abbreviation. But to make it clear, NATO had the so-called NATO Readiness Forces. Within this NATO Ready Forces, nations commit themselves to provide forces as well as headquarters. Germany will provide from the next year ongoing for 12 months a Combined Joint Forces Special Operations Coordination Center. So we have to commit staff and other capabilities to such a Combined Joint Force Special Operations Coordination Center, in addition to other 3 missions. But overall, this means, and this is very important to understand, that we have to provide all capabilities 4 times within our own structure. I come back to that. Continued with our concept of employment. When we are looking for current deployments as well as for future strategies. And it has been clearly stated what will be the spectrum in the future and is already by General Lamb. Then we are looking for civil unrest, for terrorists, for counterinsurgency. And our understanding is, as long as we are able to find those who are threatening other societies, our own societies from external areas, then it must be our aim to prevent such an insurgency, such an unrest, so to be in forehand. And therefore, in particular, the mission of military assistance is more and more important for special forces within their understanding and their role and their capabilities. Military assistance means to improve or to train other nations' forces, in our case in particular special forces, that they could support to maintain security in that specific area. And of course, at ultima ratio, the direct action is the second important element for special forces. If I'm looking for a structure, command and control is, in German understanding, always a very complicated system. And therefore, you will see it now. In peacetime, special forces, and you could see it at the bottom end, the Army Special Forces Command is under control of a Special Ops Division, which is directly controlled by the Ministry of Defense and the Chief of Army Staff there. We have also some naval special forces. Of course, these naval special forces are under direct control of their Chief of Navy Staff, but they are not under control of the Army Special Ops Division. There could be better solutions. I will come back to that. On operations, me as the former commander of the Army Special Forces was a force provider, and my successor is still a force provider. He provides the forces who should be deployed to the Joint Command Special Operations, which is directly controlled by the SOF element within the Armed Forces Staff. This SOF element is working directly to the Chief of Defense Staff. And the Joint Command Special Operations then controls the Special Operations Task Group somewhere around the world on operation. But of course, the JCSO has OPCOM, while the operational commander in theater, the commander of the Joint Forces Special Operations Command, like we have it in Afghanistan now, he executes and conducts the operation. He holds OPCON. So, to make it clear, the JCSO under national aspect is nothing more than a red card holder and administers the operation of the SOTG. What is our structure within the Army and the armed forces? The special forces at the Army side are a one-star command. Next to his staff, the commander holds the operational forces and the support forces. And the core of the operational forces are the 4 commando squadrons. Within the squadrons, you find experts for land insertion, amphibious insertion, vertical insertion, as well as mountainous insertion. But they are based on a 2 years commando training, and therefore we have our own training wing. So the training for a commando trooper lasts 2 years, and then he is combat ready, without any further specialization, which has to be added on then on his further and to be executed during his further career. The majority of our commando troopers are already soldiers which have served with other branches. Additionally, we have the wing, the specialized Commando Wing, where we provide supporting elements to the squadrons on operations, which these specialists are, for example, technical reconnaissance with tactical UAVs, with other optronic reconnaissance devices, as well as they provide joint tactical air control teams as well as combat control teams. They provide EOD specialists and K9. K9 stands for Specialized Trained Dogs. And you may remember when I said all capabilities must be available 4 times. You could see it here. 1 squadron is the core for 1 special operation task group. So if you are going for deploying 1 special operations task group permanently, you must always be able to rotate it with another one. And the other 2 squadrons are then available for national safeguard operation or hostage release operation. But they are not operating on their own. They need to support it. And therefore, we have our support forces with headquarters element, combat service support, signal elements. And these signal elements are providing the lines of communication on strategic level between Germany and the area of operation and then forward in the AOR to the Special Operation Task Group and their elements somewhere on operation. And of course, we have always our own medical support elements with us. So we are more or less autark. But important is also to understand the last element, which I haven't explained so far, concept development and experimentation. Huge time is spent to analyze our lessons learned directly in the area of operation, but also in a reach-back method at home, done by specialists and former commando troopers, which are not that well trained now because they are out of age, but they could be used as analysts. What is to be changed, what has to be developed further, and what have to be done in other aspects. So concept development and experimentation is done under control of the commander of the Army Special Forces. And now we are changing to a different aspect. The structure which you have seen is not capable to maintain and to run an operation like a strike force outside somewhere around the world. So you need always support from other services. Therefore, we have designated direct support within the other services. Of course, air transport capacity for long-range distances, aviation. This is definitely not the UA, but it is the Bo 105, the little bird which we use. We call it the swooper, or the CH-53 for transport in theater over longer distances. We are always cooperating very closely with our colleagues from the Navy. We do need fire support if it is necessary by our friends from the conventional forces. We do need specialized infantry. We are differing between special forces and specialized infantry, which are, of course, our paratroopers. And we do need additional medical support. But, and this is for us the most important element, and it was stressed by my 4 speakers as well, intelligence. As it was said by General Eisenberg, 80% of special operations are under the surface. Preparation, planning, intelligence gathering, intelligence production. And we can't stress this enough. If you aren't able to find those elements which hamper your operations, which fight you, if you aren't able to find who are the guys who are responsible for that, you will miss your mission. And therefore, intelligence is the most important element. And we have to conjugate the intelligence through all level of commands. It starts with the strategic level. You always need, even if you are working at the squadron level as a special operation force, strategic intelligence. You need operational intelligence. And this is not only done by technical means. Human intelligence, I think, is one of the most important source for intelligence at all levels. The missions which we are executing are well known, and I think it's not necessary to be discussed in detail again. Our history for this very young Special Forces troop Since 1998, when the first unit became combat ready, we were deployed through the various and different Balkan operations. And then from 2000 on, up to 2006, we contributed an SOTG to Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. And since 2007, we are now under ISAF mandate, contributing in Special Operation Task Group to ISAF in Afghanistan. And if I'm looking at the current Special Forces operations and the missions, it is not by accident that partnering and military assistance, as well as deliberate detention operations against high or medium volume targets, is shown there at the top. This is our main effort, definitely our main effort, what we are concentrating on. Military assistance, I covered it already. What we are doing is, this is very tactical, forgive me for that, but I think it is clearly to be understood. We are running through all three levels of training: individual, collective training, and then partnering with a trained unit in combined and joint operations. So, what are the lessons learned? You may remember the various different graphics which I have shown about our organization in Germany, and this is one of our most important lessons. In particular, during our strategic review, which we are going through at the time, and German armed forces will face one of the greatest reorganization, I think, within the next 2 or 3 years. So what has to be done? From my perspective, as the former commander, and as I already stated against my Chief of Army Staff, but also against our Chief of Defense Staff and the Minister of Defense, we have to reorganize Special Forces structure in Germany. The already existing Joint Command Special Operations should be upgraded to a 2-star headquarters commanding in peacetime and on operations all Special Forces. But not only that. Those forces which are designated for direct support to special operations should be designated to that command as well, as an organizational part of the JSCO. Whether that will be decided or not depends very much on the positions of the various chiefs of staffs of the services, but also on budget reasons. We shouldn't forget employment and deployment of special forces is one of the most expensive parts within the military budget. Capabilities. Of course, there's always a trend to use newest technologies, and we must do that. If we would like to find those who are fighting us, it needs the modern technology and modern training methods. For example, I trained my analysts within our J2 branch with the Federal Police Office that they are able to develop profiles for personalities, that they are able to track persons in the right manner. This is a neat police function in former days. Now it is also a job for special forces, and not only for them, on operations. How to get a hand on this high or medium volume target. You may find his signatures at the mobile or whatever, phones. But how do you get his profile, his personality? How do you get a face for that specific person? This is a difficulty, and not only that. To give you another example for the scope and the challenges which we are facing, not as soldiers on its own, but also as our entire societies. Last week at Friday, we had an attack on a bus with US soldiers at the Frankfurt airport. A single individual attacked these soldiers and killed 2 of them and wounded 3 of them very seriously. This man never showed up before as an Islamic terrorist, but he was one. And what was found out later, after the attack has occurred, this man transferred from the normal individual to a terrorist through internet influences within 3 months. This is the challenge which we are facing under internal as well as external security aspects. And that's, I think, the key issue for our future strategies. We are not supposed to develop that much new tactical techniques for the deployment and employment of special forces, but to understand the environment in which our enemies are fighting and to become for them and to be in front of them to prevent their attacks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Amon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the House is open for questions. You may like to nominate the response, the individual from whom you want the response. Otherwise, we collectively will try and find an answer for you. Yes. And please identify yourself as you speak.
Chair, I don't have any question for the speakers because Speaker has very rightly pointed out freedom of action, autonomy and no political interference. How well versed we are in our own sphere.
All I can say, Mr. Sharma, is that we have a long way to go before we reach the levels of my colleagues who are sitting here on the dais. Next question, please. Yes, Mr. Bartwan.
Sir, my question is for the panelists from UK, France, Germany, and Israel. My apologies. The question is, are you likely to offer any collaboration with the Indian authorities on special forces exercise? And question two, how about your own model of special forces? How do you see that model versus Indian model? And if you can offer any specific series of recommendations to the Indian authorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to take this on, General?
My hearing's all shot away. I think it's an earlier life that I lived rather badly. But it's how we can operate with the Indian Special Forces in both exercises and the model that are applicable. I think if I could take the last one first, I think it is very, very important that India decides what India needs in its model and its construct. It has to suit your place in time. It has to suit your political concerns. It has to suit the relationship you have with your interagency, and it has to suit the very clear threats that you face both externally and potentially internally. And I think in many ways that is an exercise which India needs to get its mind around. And I think this is a very good example of drawing, expertise from other countries to see how we view and have so built ourselves. We can then help in that process as and when required, but it really has to be an Indian endeavor. I think the second thing we can do is we can bring a degree of honesty to your debate. It is really important that you do challenge the relationship you have politically, the relationship you have amongst your services, and the relationship you have with your other agencies. And we can ask the difficult question. We can say, well, why aren't you doing this? It's for you to decide. But I sense that your good manners, which are well known and well respected, would often deny that honesty of debate. And if there was ever a time for an honest debate, now's it. Because these threats are very real. And it is better to seize the problem, see the problem and seize the opportunity before you have to clean up the mess afterwards and then have a witch hunt as to who was responsible, whether it was sitting in the political authority, whether it was sitting within the military authority, whether it was a failure in the special forces, or whether it was some sense of interagency failure, and both those relationships inside and out. I think in many ways, the international community, the special forces community, are, you know, we're a band of brothers and sisters. And so therefore we're very happy. Just ask. So.
Thank you.
May I?
Would you like to add? Just a minute. Would you like to add anything, Philip?
So, regarding the cooperation, from the French side, we are starting from nothing because we are not cooperating with the Indian Special Forces today. But I think today we are building the first stone, and we are building this cooperation for the future with a major actor of the planet. So it's a good deal.
I think so. The decision how the special forces, the Indian special forces, will be, it's Indian decision, and we can only help, and we shall do it gladly. I will just say what we ask from the special forces. When I was the commander of Shaldag unit, which is the special forces, the Air Force special forces, I said to my soldier, I know my brother. I want to know the enemy like I know my brother. I want to know his face. I want to recognize him, to know everything about him, where he sleep, what he think, and I think so. This is the main issue, to decide that you want to know about your enemy. It's mean to know first, to understand first, and to decide to act first. This is the challenge. And as I say in the beginning, we are glad to help with our special forces in method, in whatever you need. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I would just like to add that the Indian Special Forces aren't limping. And therefore, it's not as if there is a big, huge quantum leap that we are required to take and we don't know how to do it. I would like to highlight that some time back there was a Special Forces competition in Africa, and almost 30 countries took part in that competition. And who do you think came first? India. So it's got nothing to do with what we are capable of doing, the type of personnel we have. It's got to do with the mandate, as General Lamb pointed out. And if you have a mandate which takes you beyond your tactical space, you would very easily arrive into that space. Thank you. Yes, General Kalkar.
Well, part of the observation you've already made, that was regarding the capability of our special forces. First, let me reinforce that. In 1987-88, the British Army requested the founder of their special forces, then Brigadier Michael Rose, or one of the founders, to visit our forces fighting in Sri Lanka, in IPKF. I happened to be the commander. And he wanted to study the performance of our special forces. We had just 3 battalions at that time, the 1st, 9th and 10th para commandos. And later on, I met him in London about a year and a half later, when he had reached fame, achieved fame after the shooting of the policewoman by the Lebanese, etc., etc. And he said that what he had learned and incorporated by learning from the performance of our special forces had gone a major role to play in the formation of concepts of the British special forces. So I do not think that we are a quantum or a decade behind. Now I have a few questions, sir. I listened with great interest General Graham's thesis, and it was at a highly cerebral level, of course, has to be on these issues. And of course got the impression that the majority of special forces operations are likely or would be directed against non-state actors. What kind of role do you see against state actors, against the state? In the same light, I am not too sure what are the rules of engagement by special forces within United Kingdom. Do they operate under the British civil law or the special law? Well, I'll leave it for that. The rest we can discuss later at lunch.
Just quickly, the first question on non-state actors. I think I wholeheartedly agree. You know, Britain is famous. We stole an empire, so we're very happy to steal everybody else's ideas, and we do that with great alacrity. So the idea of stealing the best ideas from the Indian Special Forces, or from the Israelis, or from the French, or from Germany is very easy for a British. It's trying to bring them into reality, but in many ways we draw from others. I think my reason was to really bring home the point that the fixation of state on state, that it is only state actors that are the problem, was why I overemphasized the non-state play. I think we have a very clear role in supporting conventional operations in a state enterprise. And we saw that, for instance, in the manner in '91, for instance, we saw as we went into Iraq, our concerns, very real and then realized, of Saddam Hussein bringing his Scud missiles and the like to attack Israel in order to destabilize the coalition. And so therefore the utility of the special forces on that flank was very important. In the recent invasion of Iraq, then the idea was to be able to present General Franks with a psychological advantage that within 48 hours between Kurdistan